and welcome to the Digital CxO podcast. I'm Amanda Razani, and with me today is Mike Vizard. How are you doing?
I'm good. Welcome back. We missed you last week. Hope your vacation was good.
It was. I really enjoyed my first cruise, planning to go on several more.
Are you like me and you're walking around and you're like going, ooh, well, there's an example of digital transformation in real life?
Well, not so much on this cruise, but we had a wonderful time.
All right. Well, that's good.
So our first topic of today is some news, SAP acquiring WalkMe. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, they kind of tucked this in last week during their conference in Orlando. And it was interesting because, it's SAP. So I don't know, maybe they're used to just paying maximum pricing for stuff, but it was kind of like, $1.4 billion reportedly or somewhere in that neighborhood. What's interesting about WalkMe is they kind of provide tools for evaluating how your digital business process efforts are going. And so, which is kind of a core, in fact, crucial capability. So maybe it is worth the premium after all, we'll see. But I think this is a problem that a lot of organizations have. They make changes and they don't really know for sure what impact that's having or if they're getting the results that as intended. And they certainly don't have any insight into, well, what else do we need to tweak? And as we've talked about many times, there's so much trial and error in digital transformation that, it kind of sometimes feels like for every one step forward, we're making two steps back. And sometimes people get beat up because, what they wound up implementing is more complex than what they replaced for no apparent benefit to the organization. So I think this is a smart move, but I also think that it's a capability that everybody's going to need. So I'm not sure how unique this is going to be for the long haul, but it's an interesting space to watch. I think this whole notion of digital business transformation observability is overdue.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? I as I thought about it, I have to say, actually, while I was on vacation, not thinking about work, when I rethink about it now, one thing that I saw that I really was impressed by we were on Royal Caribbean's cruise, and one thing I was impressed by was the app that they had, which was in real time keeping you up to date on all the activities and anything you had shifted to your calendar. You'd get little alerts reminding you to get there in time. So that was a good example of digital transformation. Yes.
There you go. Because otherwise you'd be taking a nap on the deck with that book inconveniently located somewhere that would result in, a tan line that was weird.
Okay, well, moving on to the role of CIOs. This is an interesting article over on Digital CxO, and it's talking about CIOs and just knowing technology not being enough. So it's really got to expand to knowing the business from the ground up, being involved in the business, being a good communicator, a project manager, kind of someone who's able to wear many hats. And again, just having some good technology background not being enough. So what are you hearing in this regard?
Yeah, I think there's just a little too much emphasis on, the CIO with the business mindset being able to translate to a bunch of technical people who are seemingly unable to articulate what it is that they want to explain to you. I find that a lot of the technical folks are getting much savvier about the business than ever, and they're well able to have this conversation. So I think what we're seeing more of is that it's easier to teach the technical folks the business than it is to teach the business people the technology. So therefore, we should probably lean a little bit more towards let's get some business savvy tech people going, and that's going to be more effective than trying to get a bunch of business people to become tech savvy is they're hit or miss proposition, and a lot of times they just wind up kind of being, ambassadors. And as we've all seen around the world, ambassadors aren't really all that effective. What we really need is people who can roll up their sleeves and get things done.
Yeah, it's true. And I will say that this isn't just the role of CIOs. I'm really seeing this more across the board, that there's multiple executive roles or even leadership roles that require more than just one specific area that they're good at. Really, you do need to have a little bit more skills in general, especially in communication. That's the key.
That is the key all the time. It's like everybody needs to be able to do multiple things if you're only good at one thing. There's this thing called AI out there that's pretty much going to optimize that one thing for you. So maybe, you need to be able to play both sides of the ball, as they say.
Yeah, be adaptable. And moving on, we have the role of low code. This is an article, How Low Code Gives Software Companies a Competitive Advantage. And of course, we're seeing this a lot more. It's breaking down barriers and making it easier for people that maybe don't have as much of a coding background, or just making it more efficient and speeding up the process with the low code.
Yeah, and you and I have talked about this issue a little bit over on Textron.ai, but from a digital CxO perspective, I'd say low code has been amazing, but maybe not lived up to its potential. Right? I feel like a lot of the times we wanted citizen developers to be able to build apps, and the problem is citizen developers are just that, average citizens, and they tend to build applications that are ugly, they don't scale, and they certainly don't know anything about security. So we're rolling those things out across some sort of digital workflow that needs to scale has always been problematic. I'm hopeful, though. I've seen a lot of advances in these Gen AI interfaces, and soon you'll be able to describe what it is that you want this workflow or application to do, and that will result in some sort of output being generated by a low-code tool that you may never actually interact with. It's just going to be a dialogue and a conversation between you and the Gen AI system until you get something that you like. And then you can iteratively address issues like scale and security as you go along. And I think we're going to wind up essentially talking to the application development process, and that AI may become a developer. Historically, it was always kind of like, here's my requirements document, and then developer goes off for, a month or two to build something. Then what comes back is not quite what I had envisioned. So then we go round robin on this forever and ever. And eventually I forget why it is we were building this thing in the first place, or the problem itself just went away. And I feel like we're going to get to a point now where the whole thing is going to be condensed. It's going to be us being able to chit chat with the bot. Might be multiple bots with different specialties to get to something that we can not only iteratively build, but iteratively tweak as we see fit as we go along. Because, we've chatted about this in the past where there's no such thing as the perfect process. Everything has an exception. But it would be great to be able to just code that into the application as required. And hopefully we don't get to the point where we have more exceptions than rules.
Yeah, well, I envision a future where I think it would be so cool, where you could literally just have a voice conversation with some sort of AI, and you tell it exactly what you're envisioning, just like, kind of how we have with image generators right now, and you tell it exactly what you want, and it just spits out the code, and boom, you have everything that you needed. And then we have human developers just checking the code to make sure that it's accurate and correct. But that would certainly be amazing and speed up everything.
Yeah. And there will be times when that code will go wrong and will need to be troubleshooted. And yeah, maybe we can use AI to troubleshoot the applications, but ultimately it's always going to be good to have somebody who can A, get in there and see what actually is happening, and B, fix that then when the machines get it wrong, because the machines will inevitably make mistakes just like humans do. I think what we all need to come to terms with is that those machines are going to be as fallible as we are, but the upside is there's going to be a lot more of us collective physical and virtual things working together to build stuff.
Yep, it's going to be a team effort.
There you go.
Moving on, and we talk about this a lot, digital healthcare in the cloud. So from data centers to clouds, reshaping the healthcare delivery. You can find this on Digital CxO. And we're seeing more and more as they try to get through all the data and have faster, speedier analysis of the data to help patients. This is the way, moving it to the cloud. And what are you hearing from business leaders?
I feel like healthcare is the last frontier for the cloud, and the issue has always been that the data is highly sensitive, and so organizations are a little hesitant to put that stuff up in the cloud where so you wind up building like a private cloud, which kind of doesn't give you the full economic benefits of going in the cloud in the first place. I think somehow or other organizations need to figure out a more hybrid model. There's an old saying that says nothing good ever happens when you move data. Right? So a lot of this data sits in a private cloud or an on-premise environment. And back in the day, we used to bring the compute to the data. It seems like we're heading back to that model where the AI is coming to where the data is already located. We're not going to be moving as much data around, or hopefully. And maybe, we don't need to put everything in the cloud. We need to have maybe a model where the compute processing is in the cloud, but the data still resides locally. I think we need to just think more out of the box than we have been historically, where we're just kind of like, all right, everything goes one place or the other. Well, maybe the new definition of hybrid cloud is something altogether different, where it's about, the compute and the data and all this stuff is federated. We'll see.
Yeah, there is a fine line there, I guess, because there is that customer privacy. But then on the same note, customers would like for there to be a little bit easier process from, when they walk into a clinic, all that information is there and they don't have to fill it out over and over again. And, one clinic can connect with another one and immediately have that information in an emergency situation where maybe they can't fill out anything. So there's, the health aspect of treating the patient and having a better experience. And then there's the aspect of the confidential data.
Yeah. Hopefully, maybe the healthcare people are always been accused of being technological laggards might be at the forefront of this next generation of hybrid cloud. That'd be something.
Mm-hmm. All right. So small businesses and digital transformation. There's a survey surfaces rising levels of data maturity among small businesses, small to medium businesses over on Digital CxO. And what are your thoughts on this? And what are you hearing from business leaders?
Yeah, this is interesting just from a digital CxO perspective, which we tend to associate normally with larger enterprises. But this survey kind of shows that SMBs are getting savvier about how they use data, the value of data, and they're going to be much more competitive as a result. I think we always have this notion in our heads that somehow or other the big companies will win because they have resources and they have all the data. And yet this survey suggests that the smaller guys are getting smarter, savvier. They've always been more agile, more adept at pivoting than the larger enterprises. And maybe it's not necessarily about who has the most toys, but rather who knows what to do with them.
Yeah. And I think that it's their time. These smaller businesses, they are seeing what's going on with AI and a lot of other tools, and they went in on that and they want to see how they can implement these technologies.
Right. And part of that conversation, too, is like, with AI or specifically, right? We're all talking about these large language models, and it's all going to be, either something I deliver through an AI service that's a general purpose LLM that we're going to tweak with all this custom data. And, that sounds like something that favors the large enterprise. But it turns out there's these new animals out there that are called small large language models, and they can be tuned just as easily for specific functions and tasks as well. And those little guys may be able to start acting like much bigger companies because they're going to figure out first how to leverage AI and make, one employee into a super person. Even there's a joke back running around in Silicon Valley about, when is the first valuation of $1 billion company with one employee going to be? I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting as we see this technology unfold and it goes across all industries in its implementation. So the future is really bright.
And I'll take this a step further. It'll be interesting to see the following scenario. Right? At one point, are we no longer working for big companies and we're all small businesses? And we're all just collectively kind of making our services available, augmented through AI. And, our bots are collaborating with one another, but we're all basically entrepreneurs. There's another possible outcome.
That is an interesting thought. Yes. Well, we've given you a lot to think about today. So please let us know in the comments what interests you the most. Go check out those articles that we mentioned to get the full details about all these different topics, and have a great week. And Mike, any final thoughts?
All right. No matter what, most important thing to do is keep innovating.
All right. Have a great week, everyone.